Well, hey Jisung, thanks for joining our podcast. Yeah, I wanted to just have you on to briefly talk about engineering at Befreed. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, how you're able to, as like about 5-person engineering team, actually ship so much, where you're at the top of our leaderboard consistently for a few weeks now, and a lot of your engineers are too. So yeah, the main goal of this is to kind of get a sense of your engineering practices, how you're using AI tools, how that's helping your engineering team, and things other engineering teams of this size or larger can learn from what you're doing. So yeah, if you want to maybe take it away and just tell us a little bit about your company and your role and what you guys do.
Thanks for inviting me. I think first things we do is actually we use intelligence as one very powerful way for us to measure all these things, do the peer review as well. And we actually only have very lean teams. In total, we have actually 4 engineers. And what we do and what we realize by AI is with AI, we can actually be very proactive in terms of coding. The small team actually benefits more from it. And the reason is because of context window. When we do the design architecture of all our code, we intentionally to make every component to within the context window. So that whenever we use a tool, the tool can have a high chance to give the right code we want to implement. So it's one trick, I think, on top of a lot of people using and adopting AI, how we actually facilitate the entire speed.
By putting in all the components, are you saying is this kind of like for front end? Do you tell it all of the different UI systems that you need to use, or? And also, actually, before we dive into engineering, want to give us a few lines about what Befreed as a company does?
Oh yeah, totally. Befreed is a product allow you to learn anything joyfully in a very personal and personalized way.
Awesome.
We built it for half years, and if you're curious, feel free to give us a check out on our website. Just search Befreed or download our app.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, so now just going into engineering, you said that are you mobile app? How do you do you have AI engineers? What tools do you use? What frameworks? How have you kind of adopted that over time? And then, yeah.
Yeah, so from day one, we actually build everything on the web. So we use React for front end, and back end we build a lot of things on AWS and basically in Python. We choose a language because these two languages is powerful for the AI to generate them because we have enough data set for AI to get trained by these two languages. So that's why we choose them for at the first place. For us, we evolve and iterate our product to get a lot of users reached on our app. So it's a time we start to build the app version, use React. There's a lot of similarity to React itself. And that's how we also share a lot of components. The AI, through the way, it helps us to basically generate a lot of code. And we as engineers, actually on the other side, to test and validate the code generated is correct.
Awesome. So what do you guys spend most of your time doing right now? Is it mostly planning what to build, how to build it, actually building, running the tests, doing the code reviews? How have you kind of found that your engineering process has shifted? And about what percentage of your code do you think today is kind of AI written?
Yeah, I would say 90% of code is written by AI, but 90% of the code is guided by the human. So what we do is usually we focus on whenever we have an engineering problem or engineering component we want to build in a product, we focus on say how can we test them, and we'll provide the requirement to the AI. And the AI will generate most of the code, and we'll focus on how to validate they're correct or not. So it can shift from make something workable, implement yourself end to end, towards you actually the testing of QA engineers to make sure the generate code is correct in terms of both for UI is correct and for functionality wise is connected to different components correctly.
Awesome, makes sense. And then how do you think like the code review process factors in this as well? Is that something that you actively have different engineers working on, or do you spend more time kind of testing locally or in production? How have you seen that change as well?
Yeah, exactly. I feel because of AI actually really capable to actually write the code on behalf of human, I think there's a huge shift from writing the code towards validate the code is correct. Upper level is validate the output is intentional. So that's why I think code review is actually very important. My CTO Jiali and I both AI machine learning engineers, so we have very minimum front-end knowledge before building a startup. We do learn a lot of things ourselves, but I think have the code review to give us more objective valuation on the output of the front-end code will be very beneficial. And it will be beneficial for two things. One is they can help us to proactively. The bug for front end could be only spotted after release to productions. Second, we also want to validate, or we also want to validate, we want to evaluate, say, this code usually should take how much time to really implement that. Is that very complicated or is actually very simple? But for front end, it's different from back end. Sometimes you have a lot of code, but it's just boilerplate. It's very simple to finish. But some of them is just a few lines of code, but it actually takes a lot of brain power to make it happen. And it needs expertise on front end to truly understand that. And with AI, I think that's also part of the reason why I want to use intelligence to give us this insight on final productivity of the output.
Got it. One other thing, like engineers in your team often contribute in ways that may or may not kind of be obvious, like it's not an obvious feature fix, or maybe it's some hidden bug or a customer request. How do you kind of like, evaluate some of these more or less visible contributions? How do you see that kind of play out in your team, and how do you help prioritize and recognize everyone equally?
So what's your question? One more time?
Yeah, it's just that some with like kind of any engineering team, there's obviously the most visible types of contributions and changes, and then there's engineers who are working on maybe more of the optimizations or tooling and so forth that may or may not get the spotlight. Just curious kind of how you think about that with regard to like prioritization and engineering visibility and impact.
Yeah, exactly. I think that part is really important for us to measure. And I totally agree with you that sometimes people make the change for UI. It's very easy to notice the change. But the people who optimize, let's say, latency for 40% can be as important as UI change. It's not more important, but it's less visible. So what we do is, because we are a very technical background, so we know like what task going to take how much time, and we know how difficult it is. Actually, it means majority of them apply to the backend, but for front end, I think we need some valuation tool to tell us, this component, this function is really hard to implement, or this function actually looks difficult, but on average, it should take less time to implement. That's something we want in terms of how AI can help us to evaluate the output of the code.
Got it. How do you think leveraging AI has made impact on your hiring? Do you think you hire less experienced people because you think that they can leverage AI more and become as competent as your like more senior engineers, or do you still feel that how's it kind of changed? Do you see that kind of a gap, or
I think with AI we actually give us more leverage to hire new grad or to hire people who have way less working experience compared with previous. Actually, I recently read one book called Zacked. It shares a lot of, it's called Zacked. So it's a book tell about the early stage of Facebook. Basically, in the book, it's also mentioned when Meta was being built. It is a time when people have more framework being built, have a lot of cloud service start to establish. So it's the time when Zack built his own startup at that moment. He can hire the people not with 10-year experience, not 20 years experience, but instead like 5-year experience, 3 years experience is good enough. I think now what happened for AI is just exaggerate this phenomenon. Is you can hire the people even not interested, as long as they're smart enough, they know how to leverage AI, smart enough to learn very quick. They can as good as people who have way long years experience.
I think sometimes you obviously hear people who are just also like on the other side of the spectrum of like, okay, we're generating a lot of AI slop, and then like eventually, even if right away it fixes issues, over time it degrades the quality of your code base. How are you kind of dealing with that or addressing that? Is that something you're worried about as you kind of push the bounds on your engineering velocity?
It's a good question. So I think that's why having strong technical insight is still very important. So how we handle that is we use AI to generate component level code. But in terms of how each component connect together, we still use human to do the architecture. So instead we use AI, like some agent to write entire code base, we first to design each component. The component can be the front-end component, can be some back-end libraries. This component is designed by human. So in terms of the code, AI generated code, if it's too bad at a certain point, you can easily replace each component or involve each component. That's how we deal with what we call it.
Got it. Okay. And then which tools are you using? So I'm assuming you're not just giving tickets to Plot Code and assuming it will write the whole thing. Are you doing this kind of more as pair programming? How have you found the kind of trade-off between background agents and agents that you can work pair program with?
Yes. So in terms of IDE, right now we still use Cursor, and the model. I like the feature that we can freely switch across different model. Recently we use the GPT-5. I think GPT-5 have a good performance for front-end code, to be honest, and the cloud is still good for some back-end code. So we use mixed model depending on what code we write.
Got it. Awesome. And have you seen any correlation so far with using more AI and having more bugs or features or issues or rollbacks or alerts? Or is this something that you actively track, or you're kind of just happy with things how it is right now?
Yeah, with more AI, more feature can be released. The last week actually be the most productive week for our team ever.
Congrats.
We launched the knowledge visualizer. It's idea we get from Hackathon, 24 hours, and then we put to our website. It still takes some time to write and put it into production because we need. Previous is all in the local host, and now we move everything into the AWS hosting. So we launched that. We also launched a new version of our app. 2 days later, we're also gonna launch a new, truly generated personalized podcast in our product as well. So last week is really productive week for our team, and I think all these things is powered by AI. I would say it's still like everyone works so hard, but also with AI, it's just 10 times better than what we can achieve without it.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, given the productivity, your 5-person team did better than a lot of 20, 30, 40 people engineering teams. Yeah, what would be your kind of advice or feedback for larger engineering teams also trying to get the same kind of speed ups or optimization with AI coding, and kind of what are the remaining bottlenecks that you think need to be addressed before we are, really trying to hit, 10, 20, 30x speed ups?
Team could be different. Different companies, some companies they're doing very niche. I mean, the tech stack could be very niche. For certain niche tech stack, maybe AI is less powerful. But in general, I feel the things is for the team will be beneficial to measure the adoption rate for AI. It's all happening for the big company as well. But it takes two things, like two efforts. So one is some engineer maybe is less, they can reluctant to adopt AI. They feel, okay, human write code is always the best. So that's something like people need to deal with or educate about. And that one thing. The second thing is code base itself. If the code base from day one is not designed in the way that AI first, then it could be some context window things, like some naming. I've talked to one founder and he basically mentioned because of naming, like the name of each object is kind of confusing to the AI. AI have misunderstanding of what the meaning for that parameter. So every time they try to call the AI can't write the right code. So if the code base itself is not AI first, it's also will reduce the efficiency of AI to give the correct code.
That's a really interesting concept of AI first code base. Do you think this is something that you will see in the future, AI kind of cleaning up or auditing code bases before it is ready to?
Yeah, I remember that they mentioned the session. So they use session to name a specific concept of their product. But session also have very general meaning. In engineering, session is like session cookie session. So that's why every time code try to write the code, it's misunderstand session. To write all the code right is wrongly.
Yeah, that might be more of an engineering concern than AI's problem, but very cool. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you too is just like you do have 5 engineers. Kind of how do you is there anything different in how you do the design, planning, and distribution of tasks, or does everyone kind of how are you seeing? Because that's often one of the bottlenecks that we see with larger teams is you still want to work in a collaborative way, and engineers still want to sign off on designs and figure out how things are built collaboratively, which can sometimes slow down the benefits of just being able to, okay, say, I'm going to build this feature and let AI go rogue, and then it might work, but other engineers may or may not want or agree with the way it was built. So how do you, as a team, handle it? Do you do that up front? Do you kind of let it be?
Yeah, it's a good question. And we actually have a very unique way to deal with that. And I call it Data by dinner. So what we do is,
Like, sorry, with like what did?
we call it data by dinner, and I'm gonna explain what is meaning of it. So it means if we have some idea in the early morning, we want to try it. We don't involve designer. We don't really do a lot of product debate. We just quickly launch it in production. Also without design, because it can be one icon change, it can be all change. It's fine. And by dinner, because we already have internal dashboard to see people's interactions, see whether people really adopt these features, how it moves the metrics, is go up or go down. And if it moves the metrics, then we involve designer. So okay, it's time to really polish the design and let's do it seriously. Same things for launch visualizer. We actually doesn't involve any designer. We tell the front end engineer, I trust your taste. I write the PRD, and let's just draw the front end from very beginning. And after that, we change some wording, but we don't involve any design. I think that's the power of AI, is we can actually reduce a lot of process for launch any new features, especially for startup. You're muted.
Do you only do this for like small day-long features, or what about if you want to actually launch like a, maybe like a week-long new product flow? How do you handle that?
Yeah. So for a big change, what we do is we internally also have a lot of internal tools built by AI. So like the UI, we have UI evaluation tools. We have a lot of agents. We also have the internal tool where we can manually update a lot of data, a lot of incorrect content in our platform. So
what's the UI evaluation tool and how does it work?
Basically, it's give our designers some spark on whether it's a good designed UI or not.
Is this something you've completely built in?
Yeah, it's just like some vibe coding. It's the outcome of some vibe code. We also have some Slack bot send us metrics every day. That's all like in-house quickly implemented.
So you use those things to kind of get real-time feedback on your early prototypes. And do you think this overall just helps you speed up your engineering velocity and kind of independence for execution?
Yeah, but I totally agree with you is in addition to engineering velocities, I think very important part for startup is actually feedback loop. The feedback loop comes from we have the idea, and then we implement the idea. And then we need to distribute to our product. And then we need the user to find the features. And they have some metrics, and then we look at the metrics. So it's come to, for engineering, is we use AI, and also we work super hard to make the implement as fast as possible. But also for product, we also need to design product as simple as possible, so that whenever we have new things launched, and also some design of product, it designed in the way to facilitate the potential A/B testings. And by make the product as simple as possible, as clean as possible, this can help us to collect the metrics faster. Because whenever you have new features, it takes some time for people to find it if you don't design it well. It also requires a product design as well. So all in all, I think it's come from joint effort from engineering, product, design. And because we're a startup and we have daily think, we talk almost every moment. If we have some idea, we jump quickly into the meeting. I think we have less worry about the process, like design sign-off, can slow down the company.
Very awesome. So you kind of have a very tight feedback loop. And is this kind of for every new feature you ship, that you have like dashboards for it, or is it just?
We have 4 dashboards with totally 18 different features measured.
So part of your engineering process is making sure every feature is instrumented for new dashboards and feedback.
Oh yeah, it takes some time. It takes us near 2 weeks to wire everything together because some metric is missing or some metrics is measured. But in the backend or in different database, we need to integrate everything together, put into unified dashboard.
Very cool. How do you think is AI helping you kind of do a lot of that instrumentation and making sure that your product metrics are in sync with the new features, or how do you kind of handle that?
Yeah, that part we haven't fully leveraged AI because in terms of that, I think the thing is the data debugging. Most time consuming, actually I built all the dashboard myself. The most time consuming is not set up a dashboard. It's as soon as I set up a dashboard, I need to audit to make sure the data is correct or not. It's data debugging. And I haven't figured out the best way to let AI to tell whether it's correct or not.
Interesting. Awesome. And then do you do something similar for like alerts or issues? So you get product feedback. Do you also get like real time, if customers are complaining or not able to use it? Do you also feed that actively into your engineering process?
Yes, we do have the alert at the API level, like some rate limit alert. We also get some real-time alert from our user. It's when we launch a new version, we do test internally, but sometimes we still have some bug. And so from product, our user can directly message me to my text, to my own number. So I will be able to see the alert from our, because user will more willing to reach out you when they spot some bug compared with they just purely say some good complimentary to you.
Got it. So this is like every is this kind of like a PagerDuty system, or they're like more like messaging you through
It's
messaging?
just message. It's iMessage. They can just text me. And sometimes we just quickly jump into some quick user interview because sometimes they mention very unique user case. They engage with our product. I think it's kind of interesting. I haven't heard it from other users. Maybe it's worth it for us to have some quick call. From time to time, user will. They're pretty open and jump into the call.
Got it. Awesome. So yeah, it sounds like your kind of high engineering velocity is a combination of leveraging AI tools for actually being able to write and ship about 90% of your code, but then also all of these processes that you've put in place to get immediate feedback, to allow yourselves to kind of ship without waiting for design product and get feedback before you go in and
Yes.
fully productionize the system. Awesome. Well, yeah, hopefully this is useful for everyone else listening. And yeah, that's super cool. And hope to continue to see you guys at the top of our engineering leaderboard.
Yeah, I really like the feature of leaderboard. Can't wait to see the result of this week.
Of course. Awesome.
Thank you for the
Well,
time.
thanks so